Welcome to another Hawaiian Friday with Bob, and you guessed it, we're talking about pain today. And we're going to talk about 3 myths about morphine. First of all, using it for pain management. Second of all, if they have allergies to sulfa, should we really be giving morphine? Third of all, the solution to pollution giving morphine is dilution. So stay tuned. We're going to be talking about those 3 myths today about morphine. So as the 3 Days Grace song said, pain, and talking about that pain that everybody feels, oh, my heart aches, and the pain that people have, we really need to be concerned with pain management in EMS. And pain management is very crucial. Number one, we need to get out of the focus in our mindset about that we save lives and we'll let nursing comfort them later. Hey guys, we need to be comforting our patients as soon as we get there through verbal communication, through pain management. We need to be doing things for our patients because that's what we're here for, guys. We're not here, we are no longer in the load and go phase. In traumas, yes, we have to be a little bit more quick, but medical patients and stuff like that, we need to be getting those pain meds on board because when we're dealing with pains, when we use it for pain management, we can reduce inflammation. We can get patients on the road to recovery a lot quicker, and we reduce the risk of people becoming chronic pain abusers or having chronic pain by giving them early medications early on. You guys get tired of going on the chronic pain calls for them wanting that morphine. Maybe we need to be doing this right off the bat and taking care of our patients when they have that pain initially. We need to give them that morphine or that fentanyl or Nubain or whatever you carry on your ambulance that you guys use for pain management. But these are some things that you need to be thinking about and get out of that mindset of, hey, they've got pain and pain's good for them. No pain, no gain. No, pain, you get less gain because you're going to go down because we're not healing, and the body's going to have more problems if we don't get that pain under control. So stay tuned. We're going to keep talking about what happens when we give morphine, and if they have allergies to sulfa, is that going to be a big deal with giving morphine? Okay, so morphine has the ending on it called sulfate. And when we deal with patients, we normally ask allergies before we give any medications. And those allergies sometimes will pop up with penicillin, amoxicillin, and sulfa. Now, sulfa is a very short word for sulfonamide, and sulfonamides are of the antibiotic family. When people get sulfa drugs, okay, they are getting some type of antibiotic to treat infections. When we give morphine, we are giving morphine sulfate. It has a salt form in it, and that is what makes it more readily available to absorb inside the body. When we give morphine sulfate, it has nothing to do with a sulfa allergy. Unless they have a sulfate allergy, which is that salt allergy, then yeah, maybe let's hold off giving it, or more than likely they're just going to have an adverse reaction to the morphine. But when we're talking about giving a patient a medication and they say, oh, I've got an allergy to sulfa, okay, we're talking sulfonamides, which we use for bacterial infections. Now, I've got a little article here that I wrote way back in, and I'll put this on the Facebook page so you can go ahead and read the article if you'd like. But sulfonamides are a chemical compound of the amides of any sulfonic acid. This class includes several groups of drugs that are used for treatment for bacterial infections, diabetes mellitus, edema, hypertension, and gout. Does that have anything to do with sulfate? No. And we go on to talk about sulfate. Well, being that these drugs are usually a weak form of an acid or base to being with, in this form, the drug is not always optimal for the dissolution or absorption into your body. So the drug needs to be absorbed through therapeutic effect and usually needs to be water soluble. How do we make things water soluble? You add a salt to it. Therefore, drugs are often chemically made into their salt forms by adding sulfate to the salt, or you see a drug with chloride, sodium chloride, salt, so you add chloride to the end of drug, it makes it more readily absorbed inside the body. Over 50% of drugs molecules used in medicine exist as salts, most frequently as a hydrochloride, sodium, or sulfate salts. This was taken from drugs.com, clearing up the confusion of drug names and their salts. So keep that in mind when we're delivering morphine to patients, that it is a salt in that form. It's morphine sulfate. It's a salt. It is not an antibiotic, and everybody knows that morphine sulfate is not an antibiotic. It is a pain management drug. It is an analgesic. So keep that in mind. That myth is debunked. So the final one I want to talk about is the solution to pollution is dilution. When we deal with morphine, a lot of people say, early morning math, I want to dilute this morphine down into a 1-to-1 concentration, which is great. In theory, it is a great idea. Now, if you're drawing straight out of a vial, that works so much better. But the number one thing that I find is people are using Carpijects to draw out of the Carpijects like a vial, and they're administering it in a 1-to-1 concentration. Please do not do this. Because when you think you're giving that patient 2 milligrams of morphine, you are more than likely giving them 10 milligrams of morphine. Let me explain why. So, we all have the Carpijects, and we know the Carpijects were created here back around the 1960s, 1970s to make things a lot easier to administer. And they really gained popularity in EMS here recently in the last 20 years. And the Carpiject is put into an administration that screws on to the bottom, and then it punctures the top, and then we're able to flush it and administer whatever medication. We don't have to draw up a medication. We just hook it up to the Luer lock system and administer it. It makes things so much simpler. Why would you need to get another syringe, draw it out of the Carpiject, then to go over here and administer? Are you spending more time getting this set up that you're not taking care of your patient's pain meds? Exactly. So specifically with morphine, because morphine usually comes packaged in Carpijects in 10 milligrams and 1 ml. Well, each one of those little dashes on there is 1 milligram. So if you're watching closely, you can administer it very easily. Now, a lot of people say, well, hey, I'm going down the street and I hit railroad tracks and I happen to give 2 more milligrams because I bumped. Okay, that's part of how you're holding it. We don't hold it like a normal syringe, okay? You need to hold it in your hand. You're going to hold it in your hand, okay? Not like this. We're not syringing it, okay? But instead, hold it with one part on one side of the plunger and the other part on the other where that little tab is, and then push it. As you're pushing it in, you can slow down that push coming out, okay? And that saves you from giving too much medication to that patient. The other problem that people don't like using Carpijects is they don't know how to use Carpijects. And this has been proven through a scientific article that they did figuring out why people were having problems with IVs and IV medication administration. So when people were administering, they didn't know how to use the Carpiject, so they just drew out of it like it was a regular vial and put it into a regular syringe because that's what they remember doing. The problem with that is those are not created to be a sterile vial, and we're not using them as they appropriately were to be administered. Now, if you have an issue with the Carpiject and it's not wanting to run, then you can go ahead and draw it out. But why would you draw it out to begin with? I don't know. So people draw it out and they put it into a 10 cc syringe. Now, number one, those 10 cc syringes that we use all say normal saline only. Interesting fact. Why are we putting medications into something that says normal saline only? Okay. Second of all, when they told you to push out 1 cc and then draw up your 1 cc of morphine, and then now you have a 1-to-1 concentration. Now, please tell me, if you do not agitate that mixture in some way or another, do you have a 1-to-1 concentration? Or when you administer that first 2 milligrams, okay, which would be 2 cc's because it's a 1-to-1 concentration, hey, Nixon, okay, that 1-to-1 concentration that you're administering to that patient, did you give them 2 milligrams? Or did you push in 10 milligrams of morphine and then follow that with 1 cc of normal saline? Interesting thought. Be thinking about that. So try to reduce the amount of drawing up into a separate syringe the morphine. Now, if you're drawing out of a vial, that's a different story. If you're in the nursing setting, you have your vial of normal saline, you have your vial of morphine, and you can dilute it down. That works great. But in EMS, we normally don't carry that. You're just doing it into a 1-to-1, and you're throwing things around and hoping they stick. Okay? Be very careful doing that. So I'm going to leave you with that thought today. So be thinking about that when you are delivering morphine to patients, and just be using the Carpijects if that's what you carry. If you carry the vials, then keep doing it with the way you were doing with vials. But don't try to mix the two together, because we're going to get an ugly looking dog from that mating ritual going on there. So be very careful with that. So today we've talked about 3 myths with morphine. Number 1, pain management with people, and how we need to be doing early pain management to start helping the body do what it needs to do. Number 2, giving morphine to people with sulfa allergies is a bad idea. No, it's not. It's perfectly fine because it's morphine sulfate and it's sulfonamides, and sulfonamides are for bacterial infections, and morphine sulfate is just a salt that we administer with. And finally, giving that morphine to a patient in a 1-to-1 concentration that we've mixed in the back of the ambulance, that could be an issue, because now when you think you're giving them 2 milligrams, you actually gave them the full 10. No wonder they had pain relief. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care, and just be ever thinking about what you're doing in the back of the ambulance, and don't just accept things by blind faith. You guys have a good day. Take care.